Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you happen to be watching this. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to talk about the two comics we read for the week, the Wonder Woman run and the Thor run. Both of them are issue 1 through 4 or 5, and both of them are dealing with the idea of creating a new start for a well established character. And both of them are dealing with powerful comic book women. I think we need to start with Wonder Woman's creator. I don't do this very often, but I think in this case, it's extremely important to think about the author, the creator, and Marston is one of the more interesting individuals in the history of comics. You can see from the title there lying, voting, and equality. First of all, Marston had a PhD from Harvard, and he invented the lie detector. So those two things are, I think, an important element of the character. And certainly, if you look at the book, the magic lasso, at its most basic form, is nothing other than a lie detector. Excuse me. He was inspired by the women getting the vote. Women who were working to get the vote in the early part of the 20th century uh, did all sorts of things like chain themselves to the gates of the White House and things like that. And he was inspired by all of that. And it's one of the reasons there are Wonder Woman gets chained up in a lot of the early stories. And it's one of the reasons why Wonder Woman's weakness in those early stories is being bound by men. I think it's important, though, and I hate reading on the slides for you, although I probably do it more than I should. She was created to set a standard for strong, free, courageous womanhood. She was designed to inspire girls to self confidence and achievement in athletics, occupations, and professions monopolized by men. Now, again, please remember, this is not 2023 when this book came out. This book originally came out in 1941, and he was all about the idea that the only hope for civilization is the greater freedom and development and equality of women in all fields of human activity. Wonder Woman issue 1 and Sensation Comics issue 1, you'll notice that both of them are a military sitting on the cover. Both of them show Diana with the lasso, those sorts of things. But Marston went a bit further as he went through explaining what he wanted Wonder Woman to do. Women, according to Marston, have twice as much emotional development and the ability to love than men do. The second thing I think is important that he says that they will clearly come to rule business and the nation and the world. Going a step further, he viewed Wonder Woman as psychological propaganda for the new type of woman who should rule the world. And in his personal life, Marston, I'll phrase it this way, practiced what he preached. He, his wife, two of his lovers participated in a cult of female sexual power organized by his aunt. I'm not going to go into the Freudian relationships at all. It seems, who are we to judge? We're just going to phrase it that way. I think it's important here to take a look, though. Wonder Woman had a clear political agenda, or Wonder Woman's author had a clear political agenda when he created the character and when he published the book. Going one step further, to go back to Shazam, I think it's important. This was from the first issue of Wonder Woman, and you'll notice The strength of Hercules, same thing as Shazam. Speed of Mercury, same thing as Shazam. The wisdom of Athena / Minerva, those bits of wisdom, Shazam had it from, um, excuse me, Shazam had it, I lost it there for a second, had it from Solomon. But if you keep going here, there's also from Mary, the beauty. I will add here that certainly in Greek mythology, Aphrodite is far greater than Aurora. The beauty of Aphrodite wins. But I think it's important to understand that Wonder Woman came out after Shazam, but before Mary. And so we probably have this idea of borrowing from a previous character. And we've talked about that before. These two comics, I'm not going to deal with the plot very much. And in fact, with the plots, I think they start from a good spot where you can easily figure out what is happening. You may not know what came before, but you can certainly pick up where we are and move forward through the issues for this week's reading. So instead, I want to talk about some troublesome terms that these comics represent. First of all, is a retcon. Retcon is short for retroactive continuity. And what a retcon does is change the accepted facts about events or characters. Wonder Woman came from clay. That's been part of the creation story of Wonder Woman for a long time. This story retcons that and changes it so that Wonder Woman doesn't come from clay anymore. Wonder Woman is a daughter of Zeus. And I believe that the book does a good job with this retcon. There are believable reasons. Hera shows herself to be vindictive. It's part of the update of the character to some degree. This is a new start, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I don't think there's any really problematic or dated material, but that's one of the reasons retcons exist, to cover up and eliminate really dated material from books that are 70, 80, 90 years old. And also, I believe that a retcon allows the writer to tell new stories the way the writer wants to tell the stories. And so some of these changes, whether they be big or small, are very, very simple ways to redo a character, update a character, and then allow the writer to tell some new stories. This one, I think, was fairly well done. The second term is a reboot. I'm going to start with the DC end of it, and I'll allude to a Marvel reboot as well. The best analogy I can give you is that a reboot is like a factory reset on your phone. You can have a hard reboot, and that's a start from scratch, no data is backed up, and everything begins fresh. And you can have a soft reboot. And in the soft reboot, the data is backed up, but it seems as if the old data gets mixed up with the new data, and a soft reboot often produces a lot of confusion. The cover you see on screen was discussed in the comic historians' presentations last week. And it's the Flash of Two Worlds. And what DC did in the 1950s is take some of its old characters, the Flash and the Green Lantern in particular, and just change them. Jay Garrick had been the Flash, Barry Allen became the Flash. Alan Scott had been the Green Lantern, Hal Jordan becomes the Green Lantern. And in this classic story, Flash of Two Worlds, we have Barry Allen and Jay Garrick coming into contact with each other, and we find out that there's an Earth 1 and an Earth 2. This story happened in 1961. Throughout the 60s, throughout the 70s, and the early 80s, writers would just create Earth 2, Earth 3, Earth 9,855, and I'm guessing there was probably Earth 6,324. And things got very, very confusing. And so it came to the point that DC decided to do a reboot. And the reboot was called Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they got rid of superfluous Earths. And in this case, they got rid of every Earth except the Earth that the comic book deals with, the Earth that is allegedly our Earth. They also used it to kill off characters. Barry Allen Flash, gone. Supergirl, gone. And you saw covers of that in the other history of the DC universe, especially the Supergirl death. This reboot started everything new. Everything that had happened before was gone. All those old Earths were gone, and everything started from scratch. This was the epitome of a hard reboot. DC's had a lot of them. And the Wonder Woman comic that we are reading issues 1 through 5 of is a hard reboot. And the New 52 was one of the big reboots. It got rid of all of the things that happened in the Crisis in 1984, and it began anew here in 2011 with a whole new set of stories. This one you'll notice is in issue 1, and I think it's a good way for readers to start established titles or characters. This reboot should be an easy way to get into the Wonder Woman story if you know nothing about Wonder Woman. Marvel has had its own set of reboots. One of them was the Secret Wars. And the Secret Wars basically had the same thing as the Crisis. A few characters died. The most famous or infamous thing to come out of Secret Wars, I believe, was Spider-Man getting the black symbiote costume that later became Venom and all of the things associated with that. However, Marvel sort of had a merchandising retcon. If you look at the masthead on the left, you'll see that there's Thor and She Hulk, Reed Richards, The Thing, Spider Man, Iron Man, Wolverine, and Storm. However, on the t shirt I'm wearing, the masthead has changed. It's Marvel's Secret Wars issue number 8. It's the one with Spider Man in the black costume on the cover. But you'll notice that Wolverine and Storm are gone. They're replaced with Captain America and Hawkeye. You'll notice that Reed Richards has moved off of there, and the Thing has moved off of there. Reed and the Thing are replaced by Wonder Man, and Iron Man has moved up to the center. All of this was really marketing. Marvel didn't have the rights, the movie rights, to the X-Men, Wolverine and Storm, or the Fantastic Four, Reed Richards and Ben Grimm. Iron Man, who was really a B-list or C-list character when the movies came out, was now an A-list character. Wonder Man is just somebody tossed in here. And She-Hulk had her own TV series in 2022 or 2023. Thor got his series of movies. Spider-Man, it's tough to retcon him out even if you don't have the movie rights. When he's on the cover, you can't have totally get rid of everything. Plus, the symbiote was something that Marvel owns. And Captain America and Hawkeye are part of the Avengers, and the Avengers movies were doing well. And so what you have is Marvel changing the merchandise to fit the movie rights. I won't call it a retcon necessarily or a reboot, but it's certainly letting merchandise drive what people see in the comics. Let's get back to the books if we can. One of the things I think that Wonder Woman does very, very well is invert things from the myth in the whole 12-issue run. And one of the big things is taking things that myths preached, for lack of a better word, and turning them upside down. Ares here says, our fate, it's not up to us. It's always been in mortal hands. Open your eyes and see what they hold. And then he goes on to say the world will always be ruled by war. That last sentence, I think, is probably true. We can certainly see that in Ukraine and Africa today. But in Greek myth, humans didn't hold fate. In fact, in Greek myth, a human attempting to control or escape his fate was guilty of hubris. Oedipus, one of the classic examples, attempted to escape the fate of killing his father and marrying his mother, and it was that attempt that caused all of the problems. In Greek myth, fate meant it was going to happen. Mortal hands could not change fate. The fates, perhaps Zeus, were the only ones who could change fate. And so Wonder Woman, I think, and to some degree, certainly Thor, are retconning the myths as well, completely and totally changing what they're about. They're not rebooting them because I'm not sure anybody's worshiping the Greek gods in large numbers. Check the other video about mythology to talk about that happening in smaller numbers. But they are, I think, changing things around, in a lot of cases, inverting what the myths were about. The Thor, this retcon, we get the start of moving from the male Thor, from Odin's son, to the Jane Foster Thor. So we get that sort of change happening. We also get the hammer at the start of its retcon. It's gaining sentience. It's moving beyond the original enchantment that gets referenced here in an episode after the assigned reading. You see the hammer acting in a way that it's not supposed to act. You see it starting to convince Jane that it is indeed a sentient being or a sentient hammer, not just an enchanted hammer. And those two things, I think, are different. So in this Thor run, you are seeing the start of a major retcon that takes place over a dozen issues or more. Few things I just have to talk about. I like Thor. I have followed lots of runs of Thor. I'm a little bit behind in my reading right now. But one of the things I've always wondered is why the Norse gods, or the Greek gods in the Marvel Universe, insisted on an Elizabethan speech. Now, sometimes it sounds pretty Shakespearean. Thine imperial allfather Odin has returned to Asgardia and demands of thee answers. That sounds pretty good. On the other hand, calm thyself down probably is a bit much. It's probably worth playing it for laughs. But nonetheless, why the Elizabethan speech? And you see that as Jane picks up the hammer, you see her dealing with thoughts that are in 21st century English and speech that is completely and totally Elizabethan. Also, I think the Thor book maybe does some social commentary. If you look at the CEO and the world's wealthiest psychopath, and you look at the face, and you look at the lines, and you look at how it's drawn, I don't know. It reminds me of someone, and you guys are going to have to tell me if I'm wrong. Please use the comments. Is that a shot at Elon Musk? And again, Musk was not the person he is now when this comic was first published. But that seems to me There's just a lot of Elon Musk in that art. Again, tell me I'm wrong in the comments. Also, I want to talk about what I'll call meta commentary. A lot of people accuse comics of being too woke, and I believe Jason Aaron is addressing that as Thor is fighting Absorbing Man here. And as we get this fight going on, the damn feminists are ruining everything. This comment trying to address the idea that just because people don't like it doesn't mean it's being ruined. And putting it in the mouth of the villain, putting it in the mouth of the bad guy, I think is a bit of a slap back at all of the people who were complaining about Aaron creating a female Thor. And finally, I want to tie this back to comments I've made before. I do think that one of the things these comics that we've been reading do well is get people to take a look at their identity. Who are they? Wonder Woman says she knows who she is and she can't escape it. Jane accepts the name. She is Thor. Odin accepts, or excuse me, Thor Odinson accepts that he's the Prince of Asgard. He is still the Odin son. And for the moment, he is not Thor. Now, again, that's going to change. Jane Foster goes on to become Valkyrie. All sorts of things happen in subsequent issues since this book was published. But for the moment, all of these characters understand who or what they are. This knowledge of identity that we hit on some of the other comments. Some of you made some great comments on last week's posts about identity and my comments about identity. But I want to point it out that it seems to be a running theme through these books this week and last week. As always, remember to leave a comment on this video and respond to another student's comment. If you're stuck, there are some easy ones. Do you like the Wonder Woman retcon moving from Clay to Daughter of Zeus? Am I wrong to see Musk? As I said earlier, put it in the comments. Does it bother you that a Minotaur from Greek myth is in a predominantly Norse story? And again, give some reasons. Make sure that the comments give some reasons for what's happening, or for your opinions, excuse me. Freya says she should have picked up that damn hammer. Would Mjolnir have deemed her worthy? Again, give a reason. Why or why not? And we've read 4 powerful female characters: Thor and Wonder Woman this week, Poison Ivy week 1, Shazam week 2. Rank them. Give reasons for your ranking, but your criteria can be whatever you want it to be. Okay? Most powerful, most virtuous, favorite because of, and give criteria for what should make them your favorite. However you want to, just rank them, give some criteria. And again, when you respond to somebody else's comments, talk about your criteria and why you changed the ranking that other students had. That's going to wrap it up for the books for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the reading, and we're just going to kind of keep plugging along. Everybody, I hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week.